friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Vlogmas. I'm very daunted by this video because today I'm filming my top 24 reads of 2024. But this one I'm filming a little bit early. I think it's December 1st I'm filming this actually, so happy December. The thing is I haven't read any books in December, so what if I make this list and then a new book comes along? There's a chance we gotta roll with it. We're kind of gonna jump right into this because I don't want to spend too much time yapping, so I spend a lot of time yapping about the books. But pretty much my top 3 are so solid. My top 3 are set in stone. And then my like 4th through 7th place like deserves their own little special recognition. And then everything else we're just going in random order because I don't think I could actually rank these guys all the way through. The lowest rating I had in these top 24 is probably like a 4.25, but I also had probably like around 10 plus 5 stars this year, so I did really good. For reference, I read about 150 to 60 books so far I think I'm at this year as of right now. Like I said, just starting anywhere, we're actually start with my very first read of the year, which is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I finally gave this book a chance and I think about Addie probably daily, which is actually just really sweet when you think about what the story is. And this is the one book that I said, like, I read the ending and I was like, where's the sequel? And to this day, I try to like imagine scenarios for her and like how it ended up, and I just need V Schwab to write that for me, please, so I stop doing this to myself. Stories about Addie, and pretty much she's at a really tough place in her life when the book starts, and she makes a deal with the devil, but then how it ends up working out is that nobody ever remembers her. Like if she was in the room with you right now and then she walked in and came back in, you wouldn't know who she was. And then one day she meets somebody who does remember her, and it just goes from there, and it's probably one of the most beautiful stories I've read in my entire life. Another January read was The Collected Regrets of Clover. This one's a surprise that this is on this list for me, to be honest, but I think it's one of those books where I just read it at the time I needed it. Like it was a 4.25 when I read it, and I genuinely don't think if I'd read it any other time it would have been that high perhaps. But I read this book 2 weeks after my great grandmother's passing, and this book is about a death doula, and the way she talks about grief so openly and how they navigate grief in this book is just so beautiful. If you're in any stage of grief, I honestly really recommend picking up this book. I actually think I might reread it in the next couple weeks because her 1-year passing is on the 30th of December, so I think I might read it around that time while I'm off of work, just because this is exactly needed at the time of reading it. If you had asked me at the beginning of the year if I thought a Magnolia Parks book would be in this list, I would have laughed at you. However, Magnolia Parks: A Long Way Home, that's on there. This is a 5-star for me, and I think it's actually an unpopular opinion that this is my favorite of the books so far. I'm pretty sure Into the Dark is like everybody's like unanimous favorite. This one for me, I don't know what was in this one specifically. We just like hit the halfway point and all of a sudden I felt so invested. I feel like I was like mad at the characters before that point, and then all of a sudden I realized how much I cared and something switched in me, and then the ending of this book had me actually staring at the wall, crying and running to look up edits. And I have not ran to TikTok to look up edits since finishing Kingdom of Ash. That tells you what this did to me. I literally read that part and I was like, no. I tried on including more than one book from any series, so any series that I have on here, it's only one book from the series, even if maybe a second one could have come in. I'm very excited to continue on with the next Daisy Hates book coming out, hopefully next year, and then I might pick up Never by this author as well. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. You guys can tell I love V.E. Schwab. I'm really excited for her new book next year. This one is just unlike anything I've ever read. I do say this one took a lot of brain power because these chapters hop timelines like nobody's business, and you have to be paying attention or else you're lost. It literally started like 5 days before, and the next chapter is like 12 years before, and the one is like 24 hours before, and like you have to be following along or you're lost. Somebody the other day on TikTok said this was kind of like her favorite very, very niche found family book, and I found that so funny because the way these characters are together, especially in the next book Vengeful as well, it's hilarious because it is like a little found family, but like the most like corrupt like just weird little found family ever. But I think with these characters often in the storyline, it was just so unique, like anything I've ever read, and so I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And then another 5-star was 9 Plus by Libra Dugo. This book made me feel so stupid. The first half, I'd confidently say I was pretty lost. My model fantasy is just fake it till you make it. Just keep reading it and eventually they'll explain it better, or it'll just kind of make sense. Like something else will happen, or something bad happened before will make sense. This was a 5-star. Hellbent wasn't quite a 5-star for me, but this is like my introduction, I'd say, to dark academia. It was the first one I ever read. I want to venture over to the genre more, especially next year. There's a couple I want to read really badly, like We Were Villains and all that, but that'll be a next year thing I get to. Redeemed by Lauren Asher. This one was a surprise. The first 2 in the Today series didn't capture my attention that much, but then book 3 was a 4.75. This was a 5-star. So about Santi and Chloe's story, sometimes I just like think about how I felt opening this book and like reading that first little prologue area about what happened to Santi, and like I actually physically gasp when I think about it. This one for me, like I did not expect to think of it as fondly as I do and hold it as close to me as I do, and I love this one. A very big surprise is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I read this was just so great. This is my first Catherine Center book, and like the way she writes is just like so refreshing, I say the right word, like a breath of fresh air. And the concept is just so funny. He's famous and she's his bodyguard. I loved their banter, and I loved how the third act conflict made sense. Like, there's something that happened, like, you're frustrated, but like already the second started happening, like I clicked what was going on, and then she had a couple chapters later, and instantly I was like, okay, well, this is a great, it wasn't even a third act like conflict, it was like a build. I'm like, this is perfect, like this is what I want. Definitely up there with Emily Henry for me, and Ashley Preston. I love her now, and I am working on her backlist. I got The Rom-Commers and Hello Stranger. I think her new book is The Love Haters, comes out next year. I'll be reading it. This is a 5-star. Very surprising. So a lot of people didn't enjoy this as much as I did, but A Novel Love Story by Ashley Preston. I thought this was so cute. A lot of people, I feel like, did not enjoy this, but I feel like the ones who did were like ride or dies for the 7-Year Slip. And I don't know what it was. I loved 7-Year Slip, but it's not like a 5-star amazing read for me. It's probably like a 4.5. This is around the same, but I feel like if you're somebody who like, all the people I've seen who've like loved a 7-Year Slip did not love this. I'm not sure what it was, like that disconnect, but I just enjoyed both. Thought they were great. I love how she writes this like perfect little amount of magical realism in it that just makes it the perfect escapism while still being like believable by chance, but like just so perfect, and just it works my mind great. I keep saying a big surprise. A very big surprise was The Push. I had no idea what this book was when I bought it, and for some reason I had heard there was like a literary fiction about motherhood, and I went in with that thing, like with that knowledge. This is Verity. Like, this is the same kind of thing as Verity, where it's very much like, I think it's a psychological thriller. Like, I don't think it's a literary fiction at all, babe. I don't even know, I haven't even looked it up, but to me this was a thriller. It was about like mother-daughter relationship, and it was so twisty, and like it was like, it gave me that same like bad feeling in my stomach that Verity gave me. You know, I enjoyed it. It was like a 4.5. I think I binged this in like a single night. I'm probably gonna reread this soon, to be honest, because I actually really, oddly enough, enjoyed this one. A book that I love this year that I read that I don't think I've spoken about on a single one of my channels is A Song to Drown Rivers. I read this 2 months ago now, I believe, and this one I'd say is like a 4.5, 4.75. The whole plot of this was fascinating, and then the ending just gutted me, but also just gave out such like a strong social message. Just like was one of those books that you guys saying like it had such a deeper meaning than like I initially thought going into it. I can't really word today, so I'm not really gonna get 100% right, but if I remember correctly, pretty much what it is she gets recruited by like the king of where she lives, I'm pretty sure, to try to go court the like king or person from one of their neighboring places. The whole point is they're playing the very long game, where her goal is to infiltrate and like convince them to build some sort of like boat passage that's how they can come in and attack them. Like, it's the incredible long game. Guys, my filming is being so finicky right now, so I've already had to go back and forth like 5 times. I apologize if the angle keeps changing. Should be it for now. I read The Lost Story, and this one was a really fun one because The Wishing Game I read by the same author last year, and I enjoyed it, but like, it didn't make any top lists of mine. This one just felt so reminiscent of like the books I read in my childhood and loved. Especially Narnia for some reason. I don't know why it gave me Narnia vibes, but it really did. Pretty much from what I remember, it's these 2 boys that gone missing years ago and then had popped back up, like, I think it was years later, or like a year later, pretty much like in better condition than they left. And it was kind of like huge mystery in this area. And then now our main character's sister went missing a while ago in the same woods. And apparently these guys are like, if you go to them and they investigate like a disappearance, like typically the person ends up showing up. Very sus and weird. She goes to them to help find her sister. Very good. Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Okay, listen. I love Kristen Hanna so dearly. I think it's one of her first books I read that wasn't in historical fiction that I rated 5 stars. This is a beautiful story about friendship and kind of like just womanhood in general, and how that can span decades and time, like from being close-knit friends as like teenagers and young tweens to now in their adult years, like how their relationship and their friendship has like changed and like morphed to what it is now. As you guys will probably see with all the books I enjoy, the ending gutted me and I was sobbing. But this is probably the first one I've read that's not historical fiction that I did enjoy this much. One thing I love about reading Kristen Hanna is that this girl's books will always be at some Value Village for cheap, and I love it. Similar vein as Magnolia Parks. If you told me this book was gonna be on my top 24, like near the top, I would have laughed in your face. Listen, if you're here for a while, you're like, Angel, didn't The Assassin's Apprentice, the first book in this series, put you into a 2-month reading slump? Yes, it did. However, I think because it wasn't the time for that book. And I've said that a million times. It wasn't the right time. I forced myself to read it. I still read like a 3.75. Like, I enjoyed my time with it. Like, I enjoyed it, but just like how long it took me to read. It took me almost a month to read. And like the language it was using and all stuff just like really took it out of me. And I cannot pick up another book for 2 months after that. I picked up this one. And it's still slow paced and character driven. The same writing, obviously, but at least now I feel like she really built upon the characters and I actually really cared for them at this point. So I was really invested. I was generally thinking I was not going to read the rest of the Farseer trilogy, and now I'm like, I'm probably going to read the entire Realm of the Elderlings. So, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This will actually probably be a reread because I rated it 4.25, I think, on my first read through, but I read it for a challenge where I was reading it in a day, and I feel like if I had just taken my time with it, it could have maybe been a bit higher. So I'm definitely gonna reread in the new year and see how I feel about it, see if like it changed my rating at all. I think the sequel comes out in like October, November of next year, so I have lots of time to read it before then, and then I'll read that one, and then if I enjoy it, I'll keep going. If not, I might stop there. We'll see. Last one before I enter my little 4 to 7 territory is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. You guys already know Miss Silver is like my top queen. Wild Love I enjoyed, but I think it was like a 4.5. It didn't like quite hit me like Chestnut Springs hit for me. This one did. It was a 5 and it came out my birthday, so I think that's why, because it was like meant for me. Wild Side comes out, I think it's already in March or May. Is it May? Maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna be there, and the green is looking fabulous. Hi guys, little introduction here from Angel in the future. I literally don't even know how I realized this. I wasn't even working this video. I was just like sitting on my couch watching a movie, and I was like, I didn't include 2 of the books I don't own in this. There's one that's in like my top 3 that I did remember that's in this video, but the other 2 I literally just like forgot about. So this would have only been the 22 books if I had not realized this. So let's quickly jump back in here. This is just back in the section where it's like no particular order, just books I enjoyed. House of Flame and Shadow. This was for me, when I first read it, I think I gave it a 5-star. I'm not sure if that would still stand if I reread it. It could be a 4.75, but I'm gonna keep going with the 5 stars just because that's what it was to me in the moment. That book was so heavily hyped and I was so excited for it. And things, I went in knowing, like, I feel like some people, the reason why they were not a big fan of this book is they went into this book thinking it was gonna be the 6th ACOTAR book. That's not what this was. It was supposed to be, I'm pretty sure when I first heard about this series, it was supposed to be 4 books, like 1 for each house. However, the way this one wrapped up, I'm like, that's it. Like, are we gonna have more? Because that ended off like pretty with a bow, like nicely. That was a very big surprise for me, and that was You Be Home Now. And this book, I wanted to read, I think it's like, I always mess up her name. I think it's Kathleen Glasgow, or it's Glasgow. I'm not 100% sure. But I wanted to read her books now for a while, but I've just heard they're very depressing. And so I was really just like not, I feel like in a good headspace for to try them out. This one dealt with like addiction in a way that was so beautiful and kind of showed how it can affect not only the person, but everybody else around them. I thought it was beautifully done. I remember just like reading it and I was like, that hit way harder than I thought it was going to. I forget if I gave one a 5-star, I think I might have, but this was a 4.5, but it was incredible. Now that we got those 2 out of the way, let's go back into now my top 4 to 7, I believe. Still 4 to 7 territory is like some god tier books that we are now receiving. The first one is Mistborn, and this one I already started transferring annotations over from my Kindle, but obviously I've like barely done any of them, just like the first 70 pages. So I rated a 4.5. You're probably like, how's it in your top 7? Because of what this book is going to lead to, and like how much I've been thinking about it just constantly, and it's been on my mind literally nonstop. I'm almost on the Wheel of Ascension right now, and I feel like that could have made this list also. And I was thinking too, when I'm thinking about like books I've read that could make this list, Hero of Ages is getting read this month. I feel like Hero of Ages would definitely be near the top of this list. That's what this book is and what it symbolizes. And like, you know, just like being the start of my Brandon Sanderson Cosmere journey, I feel like there's a place up here high. I love this. You can see I already have like 14 tabs in the first like 70 pages, I think. I'm gonna go crazy on this. These next ones I honestly could not put in order. I can't even try to put them in order, so this is just random. Please know that. First, Lord of Shadows. I read the first like 3 of the Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices last year. And this year I read the last 2 Mortal Instruments, Dark Artifices, and Last Hours. This is definitely my top read of the series for this year that I read. This book was just perfect. I don't know what it is about Cassandra Clare's second book in a trilogy, but it does something to me. Like my top read in Shadowhunters from last year, like 2023, was Clockwork Prince, which I think is a popular opinion, but it's the second book in the Infernal Devices. I also can't speak much in this, but I just love this so much. I already can't wait to reread this series next year because I'm gonna be annotating all the Shadowhunters books if I can. I'm not gonna get through them all because I'm also gonna read the Mass first next year, but I'm gonna try to read as much as I can of this next year and annotate. I don't even want to say anything about this book. I don't want to say a single thing about this book because this just, I literally remember how I felt finishing this. I just like sat there and I was like, pretty sure I read this during a reading challenge as well, which is a huge mistake. I read this during reading like 5,000 pages in 2 weeks challenge. It was like this one I did on TikTok and I binged this. I remember getting to the end and I was just like, my soul was in my stomach. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? This is one I definitely will be reading next year, I think, as well. This whole trilogy, the way R.F. Kuang writes is just unlike anything I've ever experienced. Babel is one of my top reads of last year too, and I read most of the Popular trilogy in last year, but I read this one this year because I put it off for months because I was scared. But holy. The last one of my little 4 to 7 area is Rule of Wolves by Lee Bardugo. This book was my Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay, this book was incredible, and the way everything tied together was so perfect, and it kind of left like pretty well wrapped up, but also a slight little door that there could be more coming in the Grishaverse. And if there is, sign me up, get me there, please. I need this. This is the like last little duology right now. So there's the Shadow and Bone trilogy, the Six of Crows duology, and the King of Scars duology. This is the second book in that one, and the way it just like came together was yes. Now what's very surprising is that I brand myself as a like fantasy girl. Like I think that's like truthfully where I'm like most happy is in my fantasy realm. However, none of my top 3 are fantasy. Kind of some hot tea, not gonna lie. I think I know my 3rd place, but I cannot decide between my 2nd and my 1st. I don't think I can. My 3rd place would be The Women by Kristen Hanna. This book, I remember there hasn't been a book in a long time where I have read it and like audibly needed to update people in my life about it. Like I couldn't just sit there. Like normally I read my books and like I'll like look at my boyfriend and be like, I finished it, and he's like, oh, how was it? I'm like, it was really good. And, like we kind of like leave it at that. I update him that way, but like this book, literally I was like nearing the end of this book. I was like halfway on a night my sister was staying the night. And I remember the whole time I was driving her here, I was telling her the entire plot. I went through every single plot detail I can remember, and she was like, no. We were just like going over the drama. And then she was here and she was sleeping out here in the living room, and I was in my room finishing it. I kept like running out and be like, and then this happened. And it was just unlike any reading experience I've had recently at all. Kristen Hanna and her historical fiction just do something for me. It just does something, and this did something well. My 2nd verse, I can't decide. And what's hilarious is one of these I don't even own physically. I'm putting my Christmas wish list, I'm gonna get it. So I'll talk about that one first, I guess, is Yellowface by Bookmas. This one I read during a 5-star drought. I was filming my reading 31 books for 31 days in August, and I didn't have a single 5-star that entire month. It's like, guys, what's going on? Even before that, in July, I don't think I had many 5 stars. And then this is the last book I read in the last day of that challenge, and it came shining down on me. This book was just so beautiful and dealt with like morality and ethics. It's just such a beautiful way. One thing about Arf Kwong is she's gonna write a morally great character. She's going to. And another thing is she's gonna write characters that I dislike wholeheartedly. Like I hated this main character, but I loved the book. I know there's another book coming out next year. It's called Calabasas. I don't know if it's fantasy or if it's like this kind of like book. By the way, now I've read like her fantasy and I've read her lit fic, and I love both, and I will read whatever she writes. It's just like I cannot wait for that. If you want to give me an arc, that'd be lovely. And I said, I don't know if it's the 2nd or 1st, but obviously the one I had to go up here was Just One by Abby Jimenez. I looked when it was an early arc, and I read it and literally sobbed. Just the way this book made me feel so unbelievably seen healed parts. I like said, some of the quotes in this book that I've highlighted now literally healed parts of me. I just read it and I was like, oh my god. Yes. So when I tapped this book, it's actually the first book I ever annotated. As you can see, they're really cute. But if you guys can't tell, the one that's probably in there the most is Blue, and Blue is trauma. Like Blue is just trauma tabs. Like I have one for Emma, Justin, and Maddie, and then I have one for trauma. This book I just hold so close to my heart. I think about this like daily. On the daily. This one I love, where I do like the big like just like block with the hearts and just the one highlight. Like nothing can prepare me for this book and what it's gonna do to me. And now I know this woman and how she writes, and I'm terrified for next year's book, Sailor Remember Me. I had an arc requested now, like an e-arc, one on NetGalley for Sailor Remember Me for probably 2 months. I'm like, just please let me in. Please let me in, thank you. Friends, without further ado, that is my top 24 of 2024, which is crazy. I just find like so like nerve-wracking to compile these lists. Like I said, it feels so definite, and with like there still being the whole month of December, I'm kind of nervous. I feel good about this list. Like I feel like the books I put on here are books that like shaped my reading, and I feel like really as a whole just like accurately present the reading year I had. I don't know where this video is going to be in Vlogmas. I think it's going to be probably towards the end, but I hope you guys are enjoying it so much so far. I'm having a lot of fun planning it and just like getting ready. If you guys like today's video, please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, I'm also on TikTok, Angel's Book Corner, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.